Do you have a dyslexic child within your mainstream classroom and are you wondering how you can best support them? Or do you have a dyslexic child coming into your classroom in September and you want to know the best way that you can support them within your mainstream classroom? If that's the case, you're in the right place. I'm Danielle Douglas. Welcome to Let's Talk Behaviour, where we make behaviour management easy using neuroscience. We are now in 87 countries across the world, and our behaviour planner was Education Book of the Year 2025 finalist. If you find this video interesting, you are going to find this one interesting. And this is our information and neuroscience into wobble cushions. We've also got hundreds of free resources that you can also grab from our store. So if you are ready and thinking about your dyslexic learners within your mainstream classroom and how best to support them, you're in the right place. Grab your coffee, grab your notebook, and let's get into it. Okay, lots of times that we talk to schools and teachers about the dyslexic learners, they often say to us about it being about literacy, spelling, writing. No, I want you to stop. And I want you just to think about this as a memory issue. So we are going to approach dyslexia and we are going to think about how we can best support a child's memory. When we are thinking about dyslexia, we are thinking about memory issues. Now, that may be retaining information in the short-term memory, in the working memory, or it might be processing information from the working memory into the long-term memory. And the moment that you think about dyslexia as helping children remember things better, this is when your life and their life will definitely change. Over the last 15 years, we have had all of our SENS learners, our neurodiverse learners within our mainstream classrooms. And they have not only been supported, but they have thrived, learned, and achieved more than we could ever have hoped. Okay, so we are thinking about dyslexia as a memory issue that we are going to help support. We are going to think about how we can help support children's short-term and working memory. The first thing that we are going to do with our dyslexic learners is keep it short and sweet. I know as a teacher for 15 years, a foster carer and working in residential children's homes, I like to talk. And we talk and we use verbal information a lot. However, children in general struggle to process verbal information. So we need to keep everything that we say and do short and sweet. Short instructions, short sentences. When we are talking to these children, we are using short, precise, exact sentences. So thinking about the memory and thinking about child's memory, the first thing that we are going to think about is the forgetting curve. And this is so interesting. This piece of neuroscience information has completely transformed our approach to behavior and our approach to these neurodiverse learners. So the forgetting curve tells us that children will have forgotten 50% of information within 1 hour. That is a staggering amount of information within an hour. And that is not just our neurodiverse children. So when we are telling our children at 9 o'clock, we don't run, by 10 o'clock, the children have forgotten the don't and only remember run. So don't run becomes run within an hour. Stop biting becomes biting within an hour. So if you think about all of the information that you tell children on an hourly basis, within an hour, they will have forgotten 50% of that information. Now, knowing that completely transforms the way we approach children and their behaviours. We often get teachers and parents coming to us and saying they don't listen or they don't get it. I told them yesterday. The children cannot retain that information and they just simply cannot remember it. So yes, you are going to have to repeat yourself a lot and you are going to find yourself repeating information over and over for these learners and for all of our children. The next piece of neuroscience information that we are going to think about to support these learners is something called the dual processing theory. Again, another theory and neuroscience piece of information that has completely transformed our classrooms and approach to behaviours. This dual processing theory basically means that we need to use two systems of helping children process information. So children struggle to process verbal information. However, if we use show and tell, children are much more likely to remember the information and for the information to be processed into the long-term memory. Now, I want you to think about this as show, don't tell. Every time you want a child to do something or remember something, I need you to show them. Now, we do this in different ways. Sometimes we use actions, sometimes we use movement, but sometimes we use pictures. We would suggest that you would have a visual printout or a visual depiction of anything that you would like the children to do. And I know it seems like visual picture overload, but why do you think that they use symbols on driving signs instead of words? That is because the human brain finds it much easier to understand and remember and pick apart information if it is using pictures or symbols. So to help children and our dyslexic learners within the classroom, we are going to use lots of visual information. Just like we mentioned before, we are thinking and approaching this as helping the children to support their working memory and process information into the long-term memory. By repeating information, we can help children transfer information into the long-term memory. Children need time to process and understand information, but for them to remember that information, they need to be recalling the information as frequently as possible. Another thing that we can do to help support our dyslexic learners within our mainstream classroom is to stop talking. And I know that that is much easier said than done with us being teachers or working with dyslexic learners. However, the children are really struggling to process verbal information and we talk too much. So if something doesn't need to be said, don't say it. Use visual representations as often as possible to help these children process and understand information. Something else that you can do to help your dyslexic learners within the mainstream classroom is to have and set predictable routines. So we have lots and lots of information about how we teach our behaviours, how we teach transitions, how we teach routines. But you need to think about within your classroom setting it out like Groundhog Day. And I know that we need to be flexible, and I know that things change within schools. However, we need to be having those routines over and over and over again to help those children understand and remember the processes. This may seem and feel boring, however, it will have a huge impact on children's behaviour. It reduces cognitive overload and it also reduces the nervous and anxious feelings. When children are feeling nervous or anxious about unpredictable things that are happening within the classroom, their brain jumps to the amygdala. Now, when a child's brain sits in the amygdala, it means that they are in the fight or flight mode. They are in their animal brain. In the amygdala, children cannot think, listen, learn, or process. So if a child is sitting in that amygdala brain where they are thinking or anxious about something that is happening, they are not listening or processing or learning anything. So the best thing that we can do to avoid this is to set as predictable routines as possible. This means that we are going to have the schedules, routines, and timetables, visual versions of them set up in the classroom for the children to refer to at all times. This will reduce any anxieties or behaviours that come from the back of that. Another thing that we are going to do is break down information into short little chunks. Now, we use something called task management strips to help with this. This means that we break down every single piece of information or task that we would like the child to do into 3 steps. Using our dual processing theory and remembering the forgetting curve linked with the chunking theory, this can help children remember information for longer. It also makes it easier for children to follow the instructions that we are giving. Don't forget within your task management strips to also use your visual representations as well. Something else that we can do to help our dyslexic learners is to make it as interesting and fun as possible. We want to make the information that we are giving memorable. If you would like to know more information about how we support our neurodiverse learners within our mainstream classroom, you can find the link to the toolkit below. We also have information on how we teach every single behaviour, and you can find all of the information across our social media. I'm Danielle Douglas. Let's talk behaviour.